next step, for some reason, I decided to step like a fucking retard, and I walked on the side of my foot while running, put a lot of weight on it, and it just fucking twisted. And I was like, oh no. Thankfully, I'm usually good enough at catching myself whenever I fucking step like that, that it just hurts, but it doesn't like put me out. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes. It sounds like a skill issue. I understand.
Yeah, I've got enough skill issue that it happens, but I'm skillful enough to not let it be bad.
Mm-hmm. Excellent point. I got shot in the ass, not the dick. It works out.
Yeah, I've got very mid skills.
It's good enough. No, we all fall or some shit. The funniest thing about doing unathletic shit. So when we played football, if you would ever get caught doing some shit, they would just say that's some unathletic shit. The problem is everyone does something unathletic sometimes. Like always somebody's gonna trip on their own feet. They're gonna stumble over at some point. Like just some stupid shit. And they're gonna the funniest part about football was that they caught it on camera every time. So you'd be fucking around on the field doing whatever the fuck you were supposed to be doing, and then all of a sudden, like, you fucking, the grass was too high somewhere and your foot catches and you fall over. Shit's fucking live television come the next day. People are laughing at your
So if you
ass.
fondle somebody on television,
No, really, like one time I was playing at Jacksonville State. It was Tennessee Tech versus Jacksonville State, and I was playing defensive line my freshman year. I think that's when it was. Anyway, what happened was we were getting out of a pile, and the running back was running back, and he groped my ass like full straight on, like full send, like took his hand and stuck it into my crotch and pulled, and I was like, ooh. And so as he was walking away, I took both of my fingers, like my middle finger, my ring finger, put them finger deep in his ass and lifted him off the ground onto his lineman's shoulder pads. This guy was like 180 pounds, 200 pounds, like he was fucking shook. and,
is that the one where your coach was like, Schluter, what the fuck?
Schluter, he was like, Schluter, what are you doing here? And I was like, I got his number after the game, coach. Yeah, but then I explained to him, like, I was getting groped. Everyone was like, what the fuck is going on? We lost the football game. And Schlu's over here fucking groping a player, molesting his ass. Holy shit. It was a 10 out of 10 experience, to say the least. But yeah. Football was always full of those moments. That was probably the best part about football that made it really feel like a sitcom. Honestly, the whole experience in football felt a lot like a sitcom. And I would say a lot of that was because it was all on film. Like we were always being filmed, so everything was always ready for review, right? So if you were doing some shit on the field, if you were doing some funny shit or some funky shit, or if you were getting away with some shit, you thought you would watch it that evening or the next morning. Usually that evening, because we're gonna watch your shit, and then you get outed immediately. So if you ever felt like you got away with some shit, or you two were doing shit, the only thing that stopped, the only thing that stopped it from being more like a sitcom was there's no audio. But the greatest thing is that in the NFL, there's audio now. Like a lot of players are mic'd up, so that means that they're not only is everything they're doing on camera, they're also mic'd. And I'm like, I feel like you could cut up I feel like you could cut up like a what is like an office type show, like a mockument or a documentary type show with that, because football is that funny. Like you're gonna have like 5 people on their own like personal quest lines. At the end of the week, you have to go play ball, and I think that would always be I think that would actually make a very fun story. I mean, that was Last Chance U, right? Last Chance U did a lot of shit like that, and I think in the NFL, the problem is that you have so much on the line. So the problem is that with Last Chance U, if you have some retard who comes in and says, I'm not even sure if that's politically correct to say on stream, but if you have somebody who comes on and they say something that's just vile, some vile shit, like they say something terribly detrimental to a group of people or something, like if it's a JUCO, they're like, oh, what the fuck? I mean, we're just a JUCO team. Um, but if the NFL, if some guy starts spouting something like anti-Semitic or something, which isn't something that you hear at all or very often, but but it does exist. There are people who think like that. And if an NFL team got caught with a few players talking like that, it would look really bad and it would be on national news. Whereas if it were JUCO, it just wouldn't be the same. So there's a reason you can't do it, I could see. But if you could, it would be really entertaining all the time. Like I would probably watch it because you would see so many guys get their ass kicked and they'd be like, "Ah, it didn't happen," or they would like stumble over and you'd hear them say "fuck," and hit the ground, or some fucker will twist his ankle and he'll start crying and people will call him a bitch and he's like, "I'm hurt," but he is crying. So that's the thing about football. Here's the secret: you can get hurt. You don't cry unless your like knee snapped in half or you like broke something very obviously. Like if you broke your hand and you started crying, people would think you're a bitch. But if you broke your hand and your bone was coming out of your hand and you started crying, people would be like, "Oh, it's a pass." You know what I mean?
Same thing happened when she broke my hand.
Oh yeah, it's a societal thing, isn't it? It's like as a guy, you're not allowed to cry when you get hurt unless you're like hurt. And then it's like, ooh.
I don't
But
think it's so much that. I think it's, we can't see what's actually hurt. We can't feel it, so we're just going to assume you're being a bitch.
oh yeah, I mean, but yeah, football is so shit when it comes to that because you'll get little injuries that will, like, think of it this way: I tore my labrum in my shoulder, right? My shoulder was about half strength. Our whole arm was about half as strong as it normally was, but my half as strong is stronger than a lot of people's full strength. So I could still use it, but I was notably injured. Like I was actually default device says automatic. Hold on. Individual headphone, primary microphone. That's fucking weird. Default headset microphone, Realtek audio. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so that was weird. Anyway, I forgot exactly where I was, but when you would get hurt, oh yeah, there'd be so many little injuries. Like when I tore my labrum, my labrum tear was a very major injury. Same with my back. The problem is you couldn't see it. You didn't understand that I was actually hurt, and it wasn't until years after football where I was like, my arm just doesn't fucking work. That I was like, oh, I tore my labrum and no one fucking told me. I even got it scanned and people didn't fucking tell me shit about it. They just let me live with it. And I was like, why is this the deal? Like, why is it in football that I can be objectively hurt and fucking doctors withhold that information from me, a 20-year-old person, and it's fucking legal. And I can just go hurt it more, not know. And they're completely fine. Like there's no recourse. I can't like go out of my way. I'm not saying I'm going to sue somebody, but I want my arm fixed. And I'd like it to be free, which isn't a big
Why don't
stretch in my
you
book.
just go and talk to them about it?
They're not going to say. Have you ever tried to talk to somebody when $20,000 is on the line? They're going to be like, talk to my lawyer. Like no, like listen.
Then sue.
I don't know if it's worth my time. I don't have the money to do it either. I mean,
$20,000 for less than a week is pretty fucking good. Less than a
nah.
month.
Think of
At
it this
most.
way: if I wanted to take someone like that to court, I'd have to spend like $50K. I'm not doing that.
Yeah, and then they would pay your lawyer fees as well for having to do that.
No, what if I lost? There's a good chance I'd
Well, then you
lose.
got a shitty lawyer considering the
The
circumstances.
reason I'd lose is because I don't think there's much evidence. The only evidence I bet you this is what they'd find. They'd find my medical record. They'd find where they noted that there was a tear in my labrum, and they would have said that according to these charts, we discussed that with you. When I know for a fact they didn't, but every record says they did. So I would have one of these arguments that's like, well, it could have happened, couldn't have. We're gonna have to throw it out the door unless you find more evidence, and I guarantee you that's what would happen. And I'm not hurt
But
about it.
even if they talk to you about it, are they not like? Don't they have to like do something still?
No, I'm a grown man. I get to make the decision. Do I want a surgery or not? And I said no because I didn't think I was that hurt at the time. But over time, I was like, holy shit, I've actually hurt my shoulder. And it took me the longest time to figure that out. Like my whole senior year, I couldn't really use my left arm. I didn't even think about it. The problem is you don't notice how weak you are until certain things happen. And it's like, man, like you can still extend your arm, but you don't have the power behind it. The way I could describe it is you try to crush your hand as tight as you can, right? And you feel the pressure of how your fingers feel when you're pushing as tight as you can. Now cut that tension in half all of a sudden. You still know you're gripping, and it feels like that you're actually kind of gripping with your hand, but you're really not. It's not the best analogy, but it's like you don't understand how much you've lost. all the time because it's not because I had a stable tear, right? And the reason it was stable until I like hit something. And same with like lifting. Like I couldn't bench or anything after that because I ended up hurting my arm. Oh, it's a thing. Yeah, injuries are fucking goofy. Football's a hellacious place at times. This is the thing people don't talk about because for some reason in football we want to only talk about the success stories, which I think is fucking batshit. Like more times than not, people don't do great in football. More times than not, most players go play college football for 2 years, get so hurt they can't do shit and leave. Like I wouldn't say that's most players, but a lot of players get in, they get hurt, they ride the bench, and it's just shitty for them. I'm exaggerating a bit, but the truth is most players don't do great in college football, and it's kind of to me, it's kind of a crime that we only perpetuate these stories at the top level because we always want to tell this story of success, which is very real. I mean, you can have success, you can be good at football. Like that's not a mystery. It's just there's also people who don't. There's people who don't do well, and there's people who get really screwed over by it all. Now, I think intuitively most people would say, like, I wouldn't argue with that. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't know how real that is. Like, and there's a lot of players who are really good who got really hurt, and they flopped and they didn't know why sometimes. I mean, that's kind of me. Like I had some major injuries I didn't even know that were as major as they were until I got out of football. And I was like, no wonder I struggled so much with all this. But they tell you weird shit like, every player in NFL is hurt and they're all playing at 50%, which is maybe a bit true, but I don't know. Like it's obviously meant to benefit those people making you play and not meant to benefit you as a player. And I think that I always needed somebody going up through football in my ear that's like, hey, how do I benefit you? The problem is football and sports in general are so complicated that it's somebody who doesn't know much about it, and honestly isn't that interested. That's one of my problems with football is I wasn't as interested as I should have been. But even after getting my school paid for in college with it, it's not apparent. And even if you are trying, because I did try at various moments, it's you don't know what you should do. You don't know anybody or anything that's going to be really willing to help you. Now, some people say, well, the coaches should be willing to help you. I'm like, yeah, the coaches will help you as much as it's within their interests. I mean, like, if your problem is holy shit, I've got these 3 injuries that are going to put me out for a whole year, your coach isn't going to go, well, get that fixed right now. They're going to be like, we need you on the field. We're going to need you to play. And I get that. It's a market question. You can't go up to your employer and say, hey, man, I took 6 shits last night and I'm really dehydrated. I need to go home and sip some water. They'd be like, no, you need to get your work done. You need to do shit because you're not gonna die. You can drink water here at work, when in reality you couldn't get enough electrolytes or some shit. It's a bad analogy, but you kind of get what I mean. It's there's no monetary incentive or even reasonable incentive for your coaches to tell you to go home or get your shit fixed over the next year, because there's so many players who do come to college football to just ride out their scholarship. They like some because it's kind of hard to kick someone off a team with the scholarship once they're on the team. You have to build a case against them. If they come to practice every day, if they do what they're supposed to every day, it's really hard. You can't get rid of them. That's the unfortunate truth. Now, if you're a foreign player coming in from another country, they can get rid of you at any time. But if you're a player from America, you come and say you just come to practice every day. You're not performing. You're never going to start, but you're practicing every day. You're doing everything you're supposed to. They can't take your scholarship away. Right. Now they can. Now, since everything's paid for, I'm assuming they just can. I'm assuming you can go onto a football team, and if you're not performing within a year, they're going to be like, get the fuck off this team. Like that's what I assume it's like now, and that's a lot more cutthroat. It was already cutthroat when I was there, but I assume it's even more so because now you don't really have that safety barrier. You don't have the net for you. It's like if you go there and they don't like you, they don't have to pay you $100,000 a year anymore. They just say get the fuck off this team and go, kick rocks back at home because you couldn't get to school either. Otherwise, they can just fuck your shit. But we don't talk about that.
Online.
Yeah, I'm about to get on, but now that I'm done ranting, yeah, that's just some of the hidden secrets of football that people just don't talk about. Is things aren't sugar and spice and everything nice. It's a job and it's a game that you have to be good at. Anyway, yeah. I think that's the end of that little segment there. But I'll talk more about it in the future. It's just fucking ass. There's so much to it. Anyway, yeah, I'm getting on Baldur's Gate. I'm actually probably going to upload that as a clip later because I've never really talked my experience in football.
Oh my god.
And I think if I like titled it, what would I title it? College football from a above average player's perspective, or something like that. It's not like I was like in the league bound, and it wasn't like I was at the bottom of it all either. It was like I just have this. I just saw it for what it was worth and what happened. You know, like I knew what happened to people, I knew what happened to players, and I knew what the mentalities were around everything. And really, what a kid oftentimes needs is somebody in their ear who understands their priorities, what their priorities should be as a player, and tells them to get done what they can get done and what's their legal rules. Like if I understood at that time that, hold on, I have a major injury, I need to redshirt and go get surgery. You know what I mean? Like the coaches couldn't have said shit about it, and I'd have been completely fine. If I had someone tell me that that's the case, I'd have been much more willing to do it. But I didn't. I didn't have anyone in my court. So it was all up to me to figure it the fuck out, and I just was so kind of like stressed from football that I didn't want to figure it out.